And I want to start when I was 14 years old. I was in grade 9. I was at my friend's house for dinner. And she told me that she just spent about $3,000 on a modeling course. She learned how to do her hair, how to do her makeup, how to walk up and down a runway. She got a portfolio filled with professional photographs. But when she was done, the agency she was with told her she needed to lose weight. Now, she was probably a dress size 8 or 10, and they wanted her to go down to a dress size 2. She didn't think that was possible. Her mom didn't think that was possible. So she thought, maybe modeling isn't for me. But I looked at her pictures, and to me, I thought I could see them on a billboard. I could see them in a magazine. She should definitely be able to be a model. And so I said to her, let me help you. Why don't I try to find you a job? Now, she kind of laughed. She said, Ben, you're 14. What do you know about the fashion world? And I said, well, your other agency said they couldn't do anything, so let me try. She agreed it couldn't hurt, and so she gave me her pictures. Now, the next day, I took those photos and I sent them off to a local magazine in my hometown of Ottawa. And I put a note. I said, dear fashion editor, I think this model would be great in your magazine. I put my name and my phone number and sent it off. Now, I didn't think much of it. I went back to studying for my math test, track and field practice. I sent it off, that was that. But about 3 weeks later, I got a phone call back, and it was from the fashion editor. And the editor said that they received these photos of this great model. They really liked her, they wanted to hire her, but they just had one question. Was I her agent? Well, I didn't know what I was, but I knew I needed an answer. So I said, yes, I am her agent. And the editor said, okay, that's great, but I want to fax you a contract. You don't have a fax number in this letter. So I covered the receiver and yelled up to my mom upstairs, who gave me her fax number at her office, which I gave to the fashion editor. And then the editor said, well, I have one more question. We've never worked with you before. What's the name of your agency? Well, my name was the first name that popped into my mind. And so I said, it's called the Ben Barry Agency. And so with that, my friend was in, and I became a modeling agent. Now, that was over 12 years ago. But as young people, before we try to make change, before we try to bring in a great new idea into the world, we're often warned. We're often told we need practical experience. We're often told we have to follow a standard and a safe path to success. We're often told that we have to wait to gain wisdom that comes from age, so that once we amass all of this experience, we'll finally be prepared to create great ideas and change the world. But what I learned was that this is really a myth about young people and creating change. In fact, we're well positioned without decades of experience, without holding a powerful position. You see, we haven't worked in an organization or in a field for 20 years. And what that means is we don't carry routines and routine assumptions. We're not pre-committed to established practices. As newcomers to the marketplace, to the field, we're best positioned to see things in a brand new, innovative way. And so with my friend, after I sent off her pictures, I got her this job, she said to me, you know what, Ben? I don't have to spend any more money. I don't have to lose weight. You already got me a job. Can you get me some more? And I thought, well, getting her the first job wasn't so hard. Sure, I can get her more. And so I became her agent, and she started to send more of her friends to me who wanted to model. And I developed this group of models. Models that were her size, some were smaller, some were bigger, but people I thought had the personality and the confidence to make it in this industry. But after a year of doing this, I realized, you know what, I didn't know very much about the industry. I really needed to learn. And so my family was planning a trip to Toronto, and I decided I was going to go and visit every modeling agency in the city. So I looked them up and I requested a meeting. Now, they were very excited to meet with me until I showed up and they saw a 15-year-old. Many smiled and said, when you're finished high school, we have a great internship program. But luckily, the last agency I met with, called Elite Model Management, the biggest agency in the city, the largest agency in the world, I met with their vice president, who wasn't fazed at all by my age. In fact, he brought me into the office, he showed me pictures of the models he represented, looked at pictures of the models I represented, and really started to talk to me about the industry. One of the things he shared was that to be a successful model, you had to look a particular way. You had to be young, you had to be thin, you had to primarily be white, you had to be able-bodied. Specifically, you had to be a dress size 2, you had to be 5'9" to 5'10", 14 to 18, primarily Caucasian, And he said, when I find a model like this, I could work with Elite and make her into a supermodel. So of course I left this meeting really excited because one of the main agencies in the world spent an hour with me and took my small business really seriously. He even invited me to join him as a judge of the National Elite Model Search. This was a model search that set up runways in shopping malls across the country to look for the next top model. So at the end of the runway was me, the vice president of Elite, a magazine editor. Now, one by one, hopeful models would walk down the runway, they would stop and smile, and then go back. You know, I remember someone would come down the runway, and I would say to the vice president, "Oh, she has a great smile. She would be a great model." He would say, "Yeah, Ben, she has a great smile, but she's only 5'4". She's too short. She can't be a model." He'd put an X beside her name. Someone else would walk down, and I would say, "Look at her walk. She has so much confidence. I think she would be a great model." He would say, "She has lots of confidence, but her hips are too wide. She's maybe a dress size 12 or 14. She can't be a model." He'd put an X beside her name. So many of the people I thought would be great models were given a short, sweet no. So I went back to my office in Ottawa, and I realized I had to change what I was doing. I had to let go of everyone I represented. I felt horrible to do this, but I didn't want to give them false hope. I didn't want to tell them they could be models if the industry said no. I didn't want to promise I could get them jobs if that was not the case. And so I spent a year looking for new models that matched this definition of beauty, and through my relationship with Elite, they were working all over the world. And I remember one of the first big jobs we got. It was for 8 pages in 17 magazine. My model flew to New York, did the photo shoot, and then came back. And I couldn't wait for that magazine to finally come out. And I remember that day, I was having lunch with my friends. We're at our high school cafeteria. And one of my friends pulled out the issue of 17 and passed it to me. I flipped open to the pages of my model and, of course, showed it to everybody. They said, "Ben, congratulations. Ben, this is so awesome. The pictures are great. This must be so huge for your agency." But very quickly, I saw their comments started to change. One friend said, "She has like no fat on her. I couldn't wear that top." Another friend said, "That skirt, it would make my thighs look massive. You have to be size 0 to wear that." Another friend said, "You know, I like the foundation, I like the eyeshadow, it just wouldn't work with my complexion." You know, my big 17 spread was making all my friends feel badly. Sure, they were excited for me, but they weren't feeling positive about themselves. You see, what so many of my friends were doing was that they were turning this model into a role model, comparing themselves and putting themselves down because they didn't look like her. But obviously, they didn't know anything about her. It didn't matter that they got dressed every morning without studio lighting, without a professional makeup artist, without a stylist. It didn't matter that they got dressed every day without airbrushing, without Photoshop. All that mattered at that moment was that they didn't look like her. They didn't look like the model. But you know, how could they? They all had different bodies. They all had different complexions. They all had different priorities. And so I took that magazine and I showed it to more and more friends. I got them to show it to more friends. And I basically got the same reaction. Everyone was comparing themselves. And most people didn't feel that they were beautiful after looking at these pictures. So I was having an impact, but not the impact I intended. And so I realized I had a choice. I could either continue to hurt the self-esteem of so many of my friends and other women like them, or I could close my agency. Well, I didn't want to close my agency because I worked so hard to start it, but I also didn't want to hurt the self-esteem of my friends. So I thought about what I could do. Well, I realized that the whole point of these magazines was to attract people to the products. And you know, the people who were buying the products were my friends in the cafeteria. They were all different sizes, all different backgrounds. Surely, if they saw a dress or an outfit they really liked, it made more sense if they saw it on a model that actually looked like them. How else would they be able to picture how the outfit would complement their body? And so I decided what I was going to do was I was going to start the first modeling agency in the world that was dedicated to changing the face and the shape of fashion. We were going to represent models of all ages, all sizes, all backgrounds, all abilities. It wasn't the end of size 2. I had lots of friends that were size 2 and healthy. But this was the start of body diversity. We were going to have models that were size 4 and size 8 and size 14 and size 18 that really represented my friends and their families. So the models could reach out to consumers and get consumers reaching back. So I called up all the models I originally let go, and I said, I'm really sorry I let you go, but I want to represent you again. I want you to be part of the agency. I'm going to try my best to get you work. And they, of course, were so excited because they really wanted to model, so they all signed up. And then I started to look for people that exuded confidence and their own personality and spirit, because that's what I believe beauty was all about. Maybe I'd go up to someone that was listening to an iPod on the subway and singing to themselves, but I knew they had energy, and if they could do that in front of a camera, they would be great. Or maybe two friends that were getting into a fight. I saw them arguing, but again, I saw that personality, and that was beautiful, and I knew they'd make a great model. And so that was over 12 years ago. Today, my agency represents over 100 models, really diverse. They work in New York Fashion Week, Toronto Fashion Week, Milan Fashion Week. They've been in Vogue and Elle. They're on billboards in Times Square. And all of these women are ambassadors for a new movement of beauty that aims to represent all of us. And so what I learned in doing all of this was that to create a brand new idea, an idea that's going to change the world, you don't need to be in a science lab. You don't need to be in the library. In fact, each and every one of you right now has an idea that will revolutionize our world. The key thing is, how do you tap into that? And how do you make that reality? Well, this is what I learned. I learned the first thing you have to do is seize the opportunity. You have to jump in, either help your friend, get involved in an organization. Just seize that, take that first step. Then you have to learn how that field or industry works. Often that's through mentorship, as I did with Elite. But then you have to listen to your own voice. You have to ask yourself, when does something not feel right? How can something be improved? And then once you do that, you come up with a solution. And the solution is about tapping into your own lived experience. No one else walks in your shoes but you. And so what's the solution to you? Ask your friends, ask your family, ask yourself. But by tapping into your own lived experience, you already will know what that solution is. You know, at Harvard University, J.K. Rowling gave a speech, and she said, we don't need magic to change the world. We carry all the power we need inside ourselves already. We have the power to imagine better. You know, I believe that our imagination is our power, to trust ourselves when we feel that there's a problem, to listen to ourselves to find the right solution, and to believe in ourselves to make that solution reality, and together to better our world and change it with our revolutionary ideas. Thank you.